How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the live stream. You can ask me anything about politics. There is no such thing as a dumb question, so you go ahead and ask me whatever you like, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I do not believe in making people feel silly or stupid or ashamed for not knowing things, so you don't have to worry about getting judged or getting roasted or getting ridiculed for having to ask a question in the first place. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you don't know anything about it. There was a time that I didn't know anything about politics, and I was always really scared to ask people questions about it. And there were a couple of times that I asked my friends questions about politics, and they roasted me to death because they thought that my question was something that I should have known already. And I did not care for the way that felt, and so now I like to make myself available to y'all to answer your questions about politics. And there's no judgment, there's no ridicule, there's no roasting. You don't have to worry about your question like, oh, if I ask this, he's going to think I'm some sort of MAGA lunatic. Or, oh, if I ask this, he's going to think I'm some sort of cuck libtard. It doesn't matter if you are further to the left than me or further to the right than me. All good faith questions will be given good faith answers. It can be as simple or as complicated as you like. There is no such thing as a dumb question. So you can go ahead and ask me anything that you like about politics, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. There's no judgments, there's no roasting, there's no debating. I'm not here just to yell at people and call them dumb or tell them they don't know what they're talking about, like some other very popular political streams. I am just here to answer your questions about politics. And then maybe, we can all understand a little bit more, and maybe we can all be a little more engaged, and, maybe we can elect some, some better politicians in the future because people will be a little bit more involved and have a little bit more knowledge going forward. Let's see here. Robert says Trump or Kamala. I'll tell you, I'm a Democrat and I vote Democrat up and down the ballot, but I do think it's interesting that people are still saying like Trump or Kamala as though that is a choice that still exists, going forward. Jewelmer39 says, your mama voted for Trump, right? No, my mom is also voting Democrat up and down the ballot. So let's see here. Yeah, if anybody has any questions about politics, let me know. I am here. I am available to answer all of your questions about politics. Michael Austin says, will Vivek be a future president, do you think? Probably not. He's not very charismatic or interesting. He's one of those, far right-wing tech authoritarians who believes that just because he is a tech billionaire that he should be in charge of everything. So, yeah. He's like 100% full of shit. Seth the Fighter says, why do Democrats hate our country? They don't. Jack Robert 91 says, what do you like about Trump's politics? Mostly nothing. Seth the Fighter, I already answered your question. And again, Democrats don't hate our country. Let's see here. American Lumberjack says, author of the 14th's Intent? Excellent question. Lung Juice says, will we ever have a president not controlled by Israel? So presidents aren't controlled by Israel. They're influenced by Israel, and they're also influenced by money in politics. And Israel and their lobbying organizations like AIPAC have a lot of power because they have a lot of influence and money. Let's see here. I'm 18. Why should I vote Democrat next election? Asks Beer Halta. Well, what's the most important issue to you, Beer Halta? And I will tell you why I think Democrats are better on that issue. Jack Rabbit 91 says, why did Kamala get thrown at us? It is really, somebody forgot to unplug the bots because, again, like that election is over. Kamala is not in the public eye anymore. Like, why are we litigating this still? All right, let's see here. Yeah, Beer Halta, still waiting on your answer. Have I ever been in a fist fight? No. I've been close a couple of times. And Kamala didn't get thrown at us. Biden, Kamala Harris, the Democratic Party, we're all trying to make the best of a bad situation where Biden, really shat the bed. He really should not have run for a second term. And with around 107 days left until the election, something needed to be done. And so he put his weight behind Kamala Harris because she was the most logical person to take over when Joe Biden dropped out. She technically got a lot of votes in the primary because her name was also on the ballot, only as vice president instead of president. And also no one ran against her. And also red states were insisting that Democrats pick their nominee before the DNC before the Democratic National Convention, and otherwise that they were not going to put the name of our candidate on the ballot, on the ballots in like Ohio and a couple other red states, I think. So yeah, part of it was political pressure and gamifying politics done by Republicans, and some of it was just making the best of a bad situation. All right, Beer, did you answer? Did you give me inflation? Okay. So you're concerned about inflation, Beer Halta, and here's the reason why you should vote for Democrats. It's because the Biden administration in 4 years reversed the inflation that was started under the Trump administration from 2016 to 2020. Now that Trump is back in office, we see inflation going back up and the economy showing a lot of very worrying signs that every economist is saying, like, now we're looking at a recession, we are looking at further price increases. If you want me to go into why the inflation that we felt during the Biden administration was caused by Trump, I can go into that, but that is a long explanation. But yeah, just the short version is the Biden administration and Democrats generally, the economy generally does better under Democrats than it does under Republicans. The Biden administration took inflation from 9% back down to 2.4%, which is where economists said that it should be. And again, it only went up to 9% because of mistakes that happened during the Trump administration. And now that Trump is back in office, inflation is going back up. Unemployment is going back up. Like, all the financial indicators that you don't want are happening, and everybody's saying, like, oh my God, we're probably going to go into a recession soon, and yeah, it's extremely concerning. I hope that answered your question. Let's see here. Did Beer respond? All right, cool. I see that one, and all right. So yeah, let me know. Dalta says, love that you just lied to everybody. I don't lie. Arceli Garcia Valen says, Trump did one good thing, made billionaires that stood on his side lose lots of money in stocks. The concern that I have about that is that billionaires are the only ones who are going to be able to survive this. Just because the value of their stocks has decreased does not necessarily mean that they have less money in their pocket. When the stock market crashes, the rich are in the best position to buy up all of the stocks and ETFs and bonds that are now available at a discounted price, where the rest of us are all fucking scrambling and desperately trying to survive. So, on the one hand, recessions can make it easier for people to invest in the stock market, but on the other hand, it's just like another way for the billionaire class to scoop up all these resources at a discounted price. Ricardo says, why do they target immigrants? Because it's useful to target people who are not like us. The voters that we need to get in this country don't look like immigrants, and they don't look like the immigrants that are coming from the South specifically. So it's really easy for a political party to come in and say, the people who aren't like you, they're the reason why you are having all of these problems. It's a tactic that the Schnazis used during World War II, so there you go. Tyro Pillar over on YouTube, good to see you again. Joni Calder says, is it safe for me to buy a house now, or should I wait? I would wait. I mean, as far as I know, the market is not great for home buying right now. Supply is down, and the tariffs that the Trump administration has put on is not going to make that problem go away anytime soon. Additionally, interest rates are extremely high still. So yeah, I wouldn't, but I can't give anybody financial advice because that is not my forte, Daltas says, and what have we seen? The opposite. What are you talking about? Mary Ted H says, are we going to survive? We are if people do the work. Pork Chunk, good to see you again. Republicans saying there's no recession when Elon warned of temporary pain. This is what you voted for. The Trump administration and Elon Musk are all saying that it's going to hurt, and I just think it's hilarious that Americans have a real appetite for when Republicans do shit that is going to cause them temporary pain. But when Democrats try to do it, everybody's fucking up in arms and losing their fucking mind. DGG says, should we rush to visit national parks? I mean, I would, because the fact of the matter is the Trump administration is cutting funding for maintaining our national parks. They are cutting staff for maintaining our national parks. And they are talking about like selling off land and resources from our national parks, like selling lumber and, building, allowing massive corporations to build on national parks and stuff like that. So yeah, it is concerning. Mary Ted H says, will we lose our Social Security? So here's the thing. I don't know when or if that's going to happen, but here's what I do know. The Republican Party is in full control of the government right now, and they have a majority in the judiciary, especially in the Supreme Court. They want to cut Social Security. That is something that Republicans have wanted to do for a really long time, and they have the means to do it. The only thing that would stop them is political pressure from us. And so if you don't want them to cut your Social Security, then you should try to put some pressure on your elected representatives, because that is literally the only thing that's going to stop them. Jesse Ducey 8 says, how about I answer that? No, you will not lose your Social Security. Well, from your lips to God's ears, Jesse. Anita Stacy says, can midterms swing power? 100% they can. We should all be trying to elect as many Democrats as we can in the midterms, in the Senate, and in the House, because that is how we will get, finally, a check on the lawlessness of the Trump administration. Like right now, Trump and Elon Musk are doing things that are grossly illegal and are hurting a lot of people. And if we had a Democrat-run House and a Democrat-run Senate, we would actually be able to do something about that. But Republicans have zero spine. They will not stand up to Trump no matter what he does. Matthew Raymond says, why do Democrats hate men? They don't. Jesse Ducey says they want to cut Social Security for people who are 150 years old. Jesse, that was misinformation that has been debunked. Jesse, they have gone on record in saying that they want to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. So I would appreciate it if you did not spread already, debunked right-wing propaganda on my live stream. TS says, oy vey, another liberal Jew jabbering nonsense. So that's the kind of comment that'll get you blocked, because I do not care for anti-Semitism on my live stream. Let's see here. Albert says, is Musk in hiding? Not as far as I know. J-Tree DCC says, the words behind him should say, I love globalization and will die for it. You talking about me? Because those are not what the words behind me should say, because that is not how I feel. Matthew Raymond says, what do you mean they don't? Why do I feel like that then? Why do they feel like they hate men? Because social media is lying to you. You're getting a lot of misinformation and propaganda on social media that is telling you that Democrats, people on the left, have an irrational hatred of straight white men, but that is not the case. Jesse Dussey says, no, Musk is busy monitoring his group that is rescuing 2 astronauts. Or are you saying he's not in hiding, says Jesse. Sure, if you say so, ma'am. I would die for you, Bosch says, to be honest, if that was true about actually defunding without any purpose, shouldn't this be on the news? It is on the news. They are defunding things that people need. They are firing people that are doing the good work of government. And that is being widely reported on the news. C-A-Dare13 says they definitely have a hatred and they're certainly irrational. We don't, though. I'm telling you, I'm a lefty and I don't hate men. I don't know what you're talking about. This is one of my things that I talk about on my live stream regularly, is that social media is convincing you that people are the worst version of themselves. And that's not true. Sometimes those are bots. Sometimes those are troll accounts from adversarial nations like Russia. Sometimes, those are just wackos who do not convey the opinion of the group en masse. And you are being tricked and fooled into thinking that that is what Democrats and lefties are like. But I can tell you that that is not the case. Dr. PhDG says, howdy, hey, easy question for the day. That is not about politics, though. Matthew Raymond says, no, people at my school do it. So 2 things about that, Matthew. Number 1, we have no idea who you are. We don't know if you're a real person. We don't know if you're a liar. We don't know if you're a troll. Second of all, that's what we call anecdotal evidence, which means that just because you saw it does not mean that that is the general trend. Albert says, I'm a Dem and I just kind of want affordable housing and healthcare. Yeah, me too, man. Nothing to do with hating fellas. Dylan says, last time I read the Constitution, it said nothing about signing with a pen. Am I right? Yeah, that should be really concerning to everybody. To whoever's asking me about, why do Democrats hate America? Why do Democrats hate men? Are you concerned about the fact that Trump could just have ICE deport you for no fucking reason? Are you concerned about the fact that Trump is saying that the things that other presidents and other legislators have done don't count? It's literally only what he says that is important. That should be what government does. That should be really concerning to you, not this fake idea that Democrats hate America or men. Smiley Warrior says, I think America shouldn't prop up Europe as much. We should focus on our Asian allies. I believe in I believe that when the world does well, America and American citizens do well. So I am not, shy about advocating for, global assistance and making sure that we have global trade agreements and, what's the word look like, peace treaties and things like that. Let's see here. Pork Chonk says Trump is setting the precedent that the president can do whatever he wants, no checks. Yes, and that should be concerning to everybody. Jesse says, no, he won't have me deported for no reason. That statement has been debunked. I see what you're doing there, Jesse, and I got to tell you, you're out of here because I am done trying to argue with people who are not here in good faith. KP the Great says, I love it when Trump trolls. These kids on TikTok fall for it every time. I don't know what you mean by that. Matthew Raymond says, in my entire life, they haven't had one. Had one once. Samantha Adams says, why are Dems getting violent? I don't see Dems getting violent. I don't know what you're talking about. Did you think that Republicans were being violent on January 6th? Let's see here. Crystal Smith 436 says, Supreme Court ruled in December DHS has sole discretion for revoking green cards. I'm not really sure what point you're making there, Crystal Smith. Alden says, hear me out, make an app like Waze, but instead of cops, we track billionaires. I like that. KP the Great says, how do you not know? You're one of many. Yeah, but I'm not doing any violence. Nobody that I know is doing any violence, so I don't know what you're talking about. Dylan, I don't care if we bring more money being spent on the interior, but we could do both with right tax. Yeah, if we tax billionaires, we would have a lot more resources to take care of everybody in this country and also taking care of people in other countries. Booter says, do you have a job? Yes, I am a touring stand-up comedian. Scott Talk says, smashing Tesla dealerships. Is that not violence? I don't know that is Democrats that are doing that. I don't know if it's liberals that are doing that. We have no evidence that is the case. Smiley Warrior says, if Europe can protect itself without American assistance, it is a safer world. Sure. Yeah, but I mean, that's a little bit reductive. I don't know if that is, what do you call it? I don't know if that is a substantive comment. Andrew Zichelli says, how do you feel about Israel? Matthew Raymond says, why you ignore my comment? I didn't see your comment. How do I feel about Israel? I believe that the far-right government of Israel being run by Netanyahu is being bad. They are doing war crimes. They are antagonizing and stealing land from their neighbors. And so I do not believe that America should be sending money and weapons to Israel because they are guilty of doing war crimes. And we already have a law in the books that says we're not allowed to do that if a country is guilty of war crimes. I don't like Hamas either. I am for the citizens of both of those countries. And I do not believe that their governing bodies, both Hamas and the far right-wing government of Israel led by Netanyahu, are doing their citizens any services. Matthew Raymond says, I'm 28 and in my entire adult life, there hasn't been a single male nominee for the Democrats. That is false, Matthew Raymond. That is extremely false. Biden. There you go. That's one. You're 28. You were here for Biden. You were here for Obama. You were here for Clinton. Like, what are you talking about? Let's see here. NS says, so are we going to be intellectually dishonest and act like it's not Dems destroying Teslas? I'm just saying we don't know who is doing that, and I think that it is hilarious that people are just assuming that it is. Let's see here. Vegan Teacher's Twin says, do Palestinians have a right to defend themselves militarily? Sure. I don't see why they wouldn't. Everybody does, I guess. Let's see here. Booter says, I heard that you said that we should nuke the Middle East and start over. I never said that, Booter. Matthew Raymond says, Biden doesn't count since he wasn't running the show. Matthew Raymond, I feel like we're not communicating here. I'm here to have good faith conversations and answer good faith questions. It seems like what your vibe is just to push a specific narrative. So if you are not here in good faith, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Let's see here. Wilfredo Crystal says, sassy men and baby mamas hate Trump. Prove me wrong. I mean, lots of different kinds of people hate Trump, including sassy men and baby mamas. Let's see here. Aaron Flink says, microchip burb? That's not a question about politics. Matthew Raymond says, I'm telling you my experience. No, you're not, Matthew Raymond. And if you don't ask a question, then I'm going to get rid of you. Cargo says, should Americans be allowed to vote? Yes. Brandon B says, tax billionaires more? Confiscate all $5 trillion of their wealth, and it runs the government for 9 months. Okay, Brandon B. I never said confiscate all of their wealth. I said tax the billionaires more. Billionaires pay less, what do you call it? as it relates to their net worth than every other American. There are people in this country that are really struggling to put food on the table, to pay for their medical costs. They're struggling to find a place to live. And meanwhile, the billionaires out there are buying their fucking fifth golden mega yacht, and they are lobbying the government to make our lives, the working class, worse. And just based on statistics, Brandon B., unless you are a bot or a troll or a billionaire, you're one of us. You're a working class person. And so the legislation that the billionaires are pushing the Republicans to pass are literally going to make your life worse, your specific life worse. So I don't know how you can justify that. I don't know how you can justify so many people struggling to make ends meet, fucking losing their mind. Everybody's stressed out. Everybody's having a hard time in this cost of living crisis. Trump is making the prices go up again, making everybody suffer more. And the Republicans are cutting protections for workers and unions and shit like that. And meanwhile, these guys are fucking buying golden yachts with fucking helicopter pads on it and fucking doing blow 24/7. These guys are having fucking money fights. They can just burn it. They don't give a shit. Like, the amount of money they have is so astronomical. The fact that you're defending them, if you're not a billionaire also, it's kind of pathetic, you know? Let's see here. Sean Manana96 says prices are coming down. That is according to zero things that I have seen. Let's see here. Trin Dalen says, can we legally paparazzi representatives? I'm not actually sure what the law is regarding harassing our representatives. There are, you know, they technically work for us, so we do have a right to communicate with them. I believe there was a Supreme Court case about this regarding Trump being able to block people on Twitter because he didn't like it when people yelled at him on Twitter. And I believe that counted as a violation of people's First Amendment rights. Double check that Supreme Court case because I'm like half remembering this. Yeah, you know, like, you do have the right to yell and scream at your elected representatives. They have to listen to you because they work for us. Let's see here. 3if by Sky over on Twitch says, hard work equals lots of money, no work equals no money. That is not true, 3if by Sky. There are plenty of billionaires who do no work and make tons of money, and there are plenty of poor people who are working like 80-hour weeks at 3 jobs and are making no money. So I don't know what you're talking about, 3if by Sky. Matthew Raymond says, you saying Trump not helping workers, but how are Democrats helping us? They just keep sending Ukraine our money. Okay, Matthew Raymond. So that's kind of like a question, so I'll definitely answer that. You know, let me actually have a whole list of this shit. So let's see here. Biden walked the picket line with the Auto Workers Union. His head of the National Labor Relations Board was changing the rules in order to make unions more powerful. The Inflation Reduction Act was creating clean, safe, well-paying green energy jobs that was revitalizing small towns. The Democratic Party tried to raise the minimum wage. The Republican Party blocked it. Let's see here. Yeah, and the Trump administration is cutting protections for workers. I'll try. I have a list here. Let me just double check this real quick. The Republican Party is closing the free tax filing system. That helps the working class Americans. Let's see here. The Biden administration lowered healthcare costs, capped the cost of insulin, and capped the cost of asthma inhalers. The Trump administration reversed that. So that's fucking over workers also. Let's see here. Okay. All right. The Trump administration is proposing a gold card. So $5 million, you can just become a citizen of this country. Like, I can't think of a more giant fuck you to the working class than to say that there are fucking Russian oligarchs who can pay to be higher class American citizens than working class Americans who were fucking born here and their parents were born here. Let's see here. Yeah, all of Trump's tariffs are making things more expensive for the working class. Let's see here. Oh, and here's the other fucking thing. I can't believe in fact this is the main thing here. The Democratic Party's platform is to raise taxes on the billionaires in order to lower the financial burden of the middle class and below. The Trump tax plan is literally the opposite, and your taxes are going up unless you make more than $350,000 a year. So there you go, buddy. Jose Gonzalez says, the card has always existed. Businesses buy them all the time for people they just want. Not as high. That is not true, Joe Gonzalez. JNDMD says, anyone going to talk about the fact that other countries have the same deal? Literally, you're lying. No. Let's see here. Estella says, I have to shamelessly promote Rachel Maddow's Presents Ultra. Estella, yes, Ultra is incredible, and I have a new one for you. 2 books by Anand Giridharadas, I think is how you pronounce his last name. The first is called Winners Take All, about how billionaire philanthropy is bullshit. And he just came out with a new one called The Persuaders, which is about persuading people, to come along with your political journey. And both of those books are excellent. It's Me, Baby, It's Me says, why do 50% of the country own 2% of the wealth? Because rich people have successfully hijacked our economy in order to make it so that people cannot climb out of their social status. They are hogging all of the wealth, like fucking the dragons of the Lord of the Rings universe, just sitting on fucking piles of gold while the rest of us starve and fucking freeze to death. Evasti Pau says, can you explain the main differences between both parties and what way you should vote? Well, Evosti Pau, I can give you my take on that. There's 2 different versions of me explaining what the different political parties are. There's how the parties, describe themselves, and then there's what they actually are. So I can tell you that the Republican Party says that they're the party of small government and individual liberty, but they're also the party of telling women that they can't get abortions when they want. So they really don't give a shit about small government. Right now, the Trump administration is deporting people for saying things, which is a blatant First Amendment violation, and which is not small government, letting freedom and liberty reign. If you can get deported, even though you are an American citizen, just because you said something that the Trump administration doesn't like, that is not small government. The Republican Party believes in trickle-down economics, which is, saying that if you cut taxes for the rich, they will make more money, and then they will spend more money, and that money will eventually trickle down to the rest of us, making everybody else rich. The problem with that is that it does not work. We have been living under different versions of trickle-down economics since the 1980s, and we have higher income inequality now than we've ever had in history, even more than the Gilded Age, which is an age that was named after how bad the income inequality was back then. So yeah, it doesn't work. The Democratic Party is much more pro-worker, pro-union, pro-taxing the rich. The Republican Party doesn't believe in advancing things like equality for marginalized groups. They don't believe in trying to, if your business wants to fire you for being gay or being black, the Republican Party says that's totally fine. And, the Republican Party wants to cut regulations for giant industries. So if there's a company that is poisoning your drinking water and you're breathing air with their chemicals that are coming out of their fucking plant, the Republican Party says, well, we should cut regulations so they can just do that. And then, the free market will clear it up, I guess. The Democratic Party believes in protecting people from the excesses of the billionaire class. And so if a company is going to pour a bunch of fucking waste into our water, the Democratic Party is saying, all right, well, you should have to pay to fucking clean that up. And you shouldn't be allowed to do that anymore. And you should get fined, and you should go to jail if you do shit like that. But Evastipau, I don't know if anything that I'm saying is registering with you at all. But tell me what issues are important to you. If you're 18 and you're just getting into politics, I want to know what's important to you, and then I can tell you how the different parties, what their record is and what their platform going forward is. Dean Martin, 1995 says, will you see that Democrats have been running for the last 4 years, didn't tax billionaires more? That's because Republicans blocked it, everybody. That is because Republicans blocked it. Vegan Teacher's Twin says, why did the Democratic administration veto UN votes against the genocide in Gaza? I'm not 100% sure. There are a lot of Democrats like myself who think that the Biden administration did not have a good policy towards Israel. They were much too okay with what Israel was doing to the people in Gaza. But if that issue bothers you, then you should be really pissed off about the Trump administration, because the Biden administration was putting a little bit of pressure on Netanyahu to stop doing war crimes. The Trump administration is literally telling Netanyahu, do whatever the fuck you want. They are sending them 2,000-pound bombs. They've removed sanctions against illegal settlements in the West Bank. And Trump is openly advocating for ethnically cleansing all of Palestine. So I don't give a shit if you didn't like what Biden is doing. What Trump is doing is worse. And so the Democratic Party is better on this, and you should always vote for better as opposed to worse. Matthew Raymond says that's literally the same thing Biden did. No, Matthew Raymond. All right, now you're literally just lying, so I'm done with you, man. You, again, are not here in good faith. Okay. Big Santi Calling 68 says, are we looking at a possible depression? Yes. Every economist is saying that that is a possibility, a likely possibility. Vegans Teachers Twins says, what pressure did Biden put on Israel to stop the genocide? So he stopped sending them 2,000-pound bombs. He put sanctions on settlements in illegal settlements in the West Bank. And, you know, he was telling Netanyahu, like, if you don't stop this, if you don't stop doing this, then you will not be able to count on American assistance going forward. Now, here's the thing. I'm not going to argue that that was enough, because I do not think that that was enough. But the fact of the matter is, it's better than what Trump is doing. Even in Biden saying that there should be a two-state solution and that Palestine has a right to exist, he is better than the Trump administration. Let's see here. Wayne Miller 140 says, what makes you an expert? I read a lot about it. Laser Lizard says, every single Dem live has blocked my question. I haven't seen your question. Yeah, Prikya says, what happened to the Republican Party in 79 to 80? I have no idea what you are referring to. Let's see here. Tango, that book sounds interesting. I'll check it out. Somebody said that Dems lefty lives are always ignoring your questions, so I'm going to keep an eye out for that one. Laser Lizard, is that who had the question? All right, Laser Lizard, let's look to see if you have repeated your question here. And I'm not seeing it anywhere. Treeman250R says, why are you against Doge? So Doge is, first of all, it's an illegal organization. It has not been approved by Congress. None of the members of it have been approved by Congress. So they do not have any authority to do things in government. That's number one. Number two is the things that they're doing are also bad. They are lying to you about the waste and abuse that they are finding. And even the things that they have found that could be argued are legitimate cuts, they're lying about how much money they're saving. So they're saying like $5 billion and it's actually like $3 million or something. And also, the main thing that they are doing is they are cutting services that people need. People that help people in this country and around the globe. They are cutting USAID, which keeps Ebola from coming into this country, which stops terrorist organizations. They are stopping the Consumer Financial Protection Board, which protects people from giant corporations and abuse of banks and shit like that. He is also cutting any organization that happens to be investigating Elon Musk. So it is just corruption and grift and, fucking extremely unethical behavior. Let's see here. It's me, baby. It's me. Says, how do I stop my commodities from costing more than my leisure by almost every metric? I'm not really sure how to answer that question. It's me, baby. It's me. Message me through my website, and I'll see if I can get you a good answer on that. Joe the Catman says, it feels like the Democrats are not fighting for us, the people, these days. Is that true? So, Joe the Catman, you've stumbled upon one of my favorite fucking talking points here on the show, which is that all of the media, legacy media, right-wing media, social media, is weaponized against the Democratic Party, because people will shout and scream about why aren't the Democrats doing anything, and I'm like, well, there's fucking tons of Democrats that are doing shit, It's like, who do I have on my fucking list here? Bernie Sanders, AOC, Jasmine Crockett, Tim Walz, Brian Schatz, Chris Murphy, Al Green, J.B. Pritzker, Michelle Wu, Maxwell Frost, Melanie Stansbert. Like, all of these people are actively working to stop the damage of the Trump administration. So I don't know what you're talking about. Regarding like the funding bill that 10 Democrats just allowed people to vote on, that wasn't folding to Republicans. They just believed that it would have been worse for the government to be shut down than to pass this funding bill. Which, again, they didn't even fucking vote for. They just allowed the vote to happen. That bill was written by Republicans and passed by Republicans. So if you don't like it, if you think that's bad, then you should be mad at the Republicans who wrote it and voted for it, as opposed to the Democrats who, with their almost zero political power, were not able to stop it or get a better outcome than what we are currently seeing right now. The Democrats that allowed the vote on that to happen saw two really bad options, and they thought that allowing that to get voted on would be the better option. So yeah, I am so unbelievably sus by all of these criticisms of the Democratic Party that somehow managed to twist the Republican Party fucking us all over into the Democratic Party not doing enough with the zero political power that they have. Let's see here. Evastapau says, is there any Republican ideas you align with? Not really. You know, I've read Project 47 and I've read Project 2025. Agenda 47 is kind of like the whitewashed version of what Republicans are currently doing, where Project 2025 is kind of like the actual thing that they're doing. But if you read Agenda 47, the things that I would agree with are all like extremely vague. It's things like make America strong and wealthy again. And it's like, yeah, everybody's for that. How do you plan on doing that? A lot of the things in their agenda are disguised like dog whistles for, kind of, authoritarian fascist shit, So, yeah, I can point to individual things that Republican politicians have done that I think is good. But as far as the Republican ethos is, it's just cutting regulations for giant corporations that don't need it, subsidizing giant corporations and fossil fuels, which don't need it and also hurt America, weakening unions, cutting worker protections, cutting equality protections. So, your boss can fire you for not having sex with him if that is, and you'll have no legal, cover for bringing a case against that. And, giving more money to the billionaires and forcing, working class Americans to suffer. I don't see any value to that. That doesn't seem to me like those are good policies, Let's see here. Omegady says, as a boss, I am against that law. Against which law? Me Moni says, tax bracket, you do not align with paying for corrupt bullshit. I don't know what your question means, me money. Box of Friends says, did McConnell have no leverage against Obama? No, so it's a difficult question, Box of Friends, because there were different phases of leverage that McConnell had during the Obama administration. There were like 8 months of the Obama administration where Democrats had a supermajority in the Senate, but it was a 0-seat supermajority, meaning they couldn't afford to lose one vote, meaning that everything that Democrats wanted to do needed to be approved by the most right-wing Democrat in their caucus. And the person who they had to appease was this guy named Joe Lieberman, who is an independent. And he is the one that watered down all of the legislation that Obama wanted to do in his first 8 months in office. That's the reason why the Affordable Care Act doesn't have a public option where you're not allowed to pay for the same plan that people have on Medicare and Medicaid, which, as somebody who has been on Medicaid, I can tell you is vastly superior to the private insurance that I am currently on. So then, the Affordable Care Act passes and the Obama administration is saying, hey, we did a good thing here. We brought down health insurance premiums. We made it illegal for insurance companies to discriminate against people who have pre-existing conditions. But the American population was hearing a lot of propaganda about the Affordable Care Act, that it had death panels in it and shit like that. And people were upset about that. So the Democrats lost the House, and then they lost the Senate. So the next 6 years of the Obama administrations, McConnell had a ton of leverage over the Obama administration. Now, speaking about the first 8 months specifically, the leverage that McConnell had was that Obama was trying to be a bipartisan president. He was trying to reach across the aisle. And McConnell weaponized that against Barack Obama by saying, okay, well, you say you want to work with us? I am going to tell every Republican to not work with you, no matter what you say or do. So good luck trying to be bipartisan when we are going to say no to literally everything that you have to say. So yeah, there you go. There it was. Zach says, how do conservatives argue for the defunding of museums and libraries? They kind of disguise it and they kind of lie about it. So they're not saying that they're defunding museums and libraries. They're saying, oh, there's a program at this museum that is exploring transgender, bumblebees and shit like that. And so, and they'll say the same thing about libraries. Like, this isn't a regular library. This is a DEI library. And so it's good that we cut funding for it. But yeah, it's all bullshit. It's all lying. Tony Robbie says, as a country, how do we continue to dig ourselves into more debt? The problem is that we have a political party that is adversarial to making this country better. The ethos of the Republican Party is that government is bad, and so whenever they get elected or whenever they're not in power, their entire modus operandi is to break things and not fix things because they want to prove to us all that government is bad. Like, the Republicans were fully in charge of the government during Katrina. They fucked up the response because they didn't hire somebody qualified to run FEMA. And then they turned around and said, like, look at how bad the government is. The government just let New Orleans get fucking destroyed by Katrina, man. And it's a lot harder for Democrats to do that, to do their work of building things and fixing things when half of the government is working against that, that idea. And also just generally, it's harder to fix things and do things than it is to not do things and break things. It's me, baby, it's me, says, I think you give Republicans too much credit by giving them a mission. I don't think so. No, that's the thing about, what they say about Republicans? Democrats fall in love, Republicans fall in line. Republican Party is much more of a monolith than the Democratic Party is, so it's much easier for them to all sort of like coalesce again, around a singular goal. Look at the Trump administration right now. Every Republican that is in government right now is all hail Daddy Trump. Like, we don't give a shit if what he's doing is illegal. We don't give a shit if what he's doing is hurting our constituents. We are fully on board because that's what they do. They get in line. Over on YouTube, we got John Abbott. Biden also started slow-walking deliveries last January, delaying so much that by April, Netanyahu was public complaining that it was hindering their operational capacity. Thank you, John Abbott. That is another example of how Biden was better towards Israel than the Trump administration currently is. Claire says Schumer and the 9 others should have let it shut down so people could see what they miss in government. Claire, that is one argument about whether they should have allowed the shutdown to happen or whether they should have allowed Republicans to vote on the spending bill. I think it is a very difficult choice, though, because with the government shutdown, the Trump administration would get to do all of the DOGE cuts that they are currently trying to do, and the Justice Department is kind of stopping them a little bit. They would then have carte blanche to do it all, and they would have no incentive to restart the government. They would not give a shit because they don't give a shit about people suffering. Like, all the things they're doing right now is causing massive amounts of suffering, both here and around the globe, and they don't give a fuck. It is their goal to shut down and destroy the government. So what leverage do Democrats have to restart the government once the Republican Party shuts it down and they start eliminating everybody except for Trump loyalists, I thought it was an extremely difficult decision. I kind of lean a little bit more towards the progressive wing saying like that we should have shut down the government and put it on the Republican Party. But I don't think that it was an easy choice. And I don't think that those 10 Democratic senators, quote unquote, caved to the Trump administration. And I think that narrative is out there. And so, ubiquitous in the mainstream media, I think is extremely sus. And I think is evidence of how no matter what happens in government, Republicans never get any blame and Democrats never get any credit. So Republicans took away our rights, women's rights to bodily autonomy, and the narrative was, why didn't Democrats stop that with their zero political power, Applejack Castro says, dude, you're doing too much. Please stop. It not helping. I disagree, Applejack. Vegans Teacher says, what do you think of Zionism as an ideology? I don't know if we have an agreed upon definition of what Zionism is. So there are certain people who think Zionism means that the people who live in Israel should have a right to live in Israel, and anti-Zionism means that we should eliminate Israel from the face of the earth. There are some people who think that Zionism means that Israel should be able to take over all of Palestine and turn that into Israel, and people that are anti-Zionists think that they believe in a two-state solution. I am for a two-state solution. I believe in the Israelis' right to live where they are, but I also believe in the Palestinians' right to live where they are. I think that Israel being the stronger country militarily and financially, I think it is their responsibility to be a good neighbor, even in the face of aggressiveness from the weaker of the two states, I don't know if I would describe myself as either a Zionist or an anti-Zionist because, again, that definition is really flimsy depending on who you're talking to. Cash23 says Tuesday solution has been in effect and hasn't worked. I disagree with that because Israel has not been respecting the two-state solution. Scott Kluwer says, should Benjamin Netanyahu be tried for war crimes? Yes, 100% he should. And the ICC has put out a warrant for his arrest should he ever go to a country that works with the ICC. Let's see here. Ultimate Ranger says Zionism equals the right to annex any territory you wish. See, this is exactly what I'm talking about, guys. That is what Ultimate Ranger believes is the definition of Zionism. So yeah, I'm not gonna get into a semantic argument about what those words actually mean, and I'm not going to define myself by it. I will just tell you what my opinion is. Pete Nager says, what's your take on the 238 Venezuelan gang members deported to El Salvador prison 2 days ago? So a judge told the Trump administration that they were not allowed to do that, and then they did it anyways. So it is extremely concerning to me that the Trump administration is flagrantly violating decisions that they should legally be obligated to follow. That's number one. Number two is I am skeptical that they are gang members, because ICE is doing a lot of rounding up and deporting of people who have no criminal history, some of whom are veterans, some of whom are American citizens, some of whom are people who have every legal right to remain here. And so the fact that ICE and the Trump administration are saying that they're all gang members, I'm like, they probably are all not. If you look at the numbers, the percentage of people with criminal records who are they deporting is much less than the people that they are deporting who have no criminal record. So yeah, I'm skeptical. They shouldn't have done it. It's a fucking humanitarian nightmare. It is a massive violation of their civil rights. And they are legally obligated to follow judicial directives. And the fact that they are not should be extremely concerning to fucking all of us. We should all be really, really worried about that and doing shit about it. User says, is that really true, though? Where's the source, respectfully? What did I say that you want a source for, user? Danny says, they deported owners of Jersey Kebab in my town, and they came here legally and paid taxes. Yeah, there are so many stories about this, Danny, that I can't even keep them all in my fucking head. They deported a girl who was a legal U.S. citizen who was in the middle of getting treatments for a brain tumor. And they interrupted that treatment instead of letting her continue with her treatments. They wanted to deport her parents, and they said, you can stay here with no home and no parents and maybe be able to continue your treatment for your brain tumor, or you can go get deported with your parents. And ICE did that. They are a rogue agency doing whatever the fuck they want. They also have never passed an audit, so if you're looking for government waste, we can fucking start there. Yeah, it's a fucking humanitarian nightmare, my man. Danny says, wasn't she a legal citizen as well? The girl with the brain tumor, she was a legal citizen. Her parents were not. So that was ICE's justification for that. But even if they were not legally here, I don't think that justifies that. They said that they were only going to be deporting criminals. So you got a law-abiding family, daughter getting treatments for her brain tumor, and ICE was like, you're out of here. So cruel indeed, Danny. No arguments here. Perry says, I have sources that said they are the worst of the worst criminals, actual agents. Well, Perry, I do not believe that to be true, Perry. I don't know who you are. You could be a real person. You could be a Russian bot. You could be somebody who just learned that information from right-wing propaganda sources or from a social media that leans heavily right-wing. So just because you said so, I don't buy it. Lowercase J says, would you have clapped for the kid with cancer who became part of Secret Service? Lowercase J, I don't know that I would, because I find what the Trump administration did in parading that poor kid around to be fucking disgusting, because they cut funding for pediatric cancer research. So they were hurting a lot of kids with cancer by their legislation. And they tried to make that better by showing a kid with terminal cancer and making him an honorary member of the Secret Service. Like fuck you, man. Not you. I'm talking about the Trump administration. I don't give a shit what you fucking do, what your pageantry is. Your fucking empty gestures to support children with cancer when you're literally making it harder for us to heal children with cancer. Unfucking believable. Vegans Teacher's Twin says, if everyone used the definition of Zionism that you prefer, would you be a Zionist? Yeah, the definition that I would use for Zionism would be that the people that are living in Israel are allowed to stay in Israel, and we don't need to deport them and turn that whole area into not Israel anymore. But I don't believe in Israel being able to expand into their neighbors' countries. I think that is wrong. Let's see here. Robert says, is Trump going to turn things around? Probably not. Most likely not. Eric Petty says, God, wish all you independent leftists would just go to a different country. No, this is my country. I was born here. Melissa McDonald says, who can have the president and Elon arrested? So that's a really good question. If the Department of Justice was not being run by the Trump loyalist Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, potentially the Department of Justice could do something about it. Now, there is a policy from the Department of Justice that a sitting president cannot be indicted, and the Supreme Court found that presidents are immune from legal prosecution for quote-unquote official acts. And, it is handy that the extreme right-wing Supreme Court are the ones who get to decide what is an official act and what is not an official act. The FBI is currently being run by a Trump loyalist, Kash Patel. They could potentially do something about it, but again, because of that policy of the DOJ and because of that Supreme Court decision, Donald Trump himself has a lot of legal cover for the things that he is doing. The U.S. Marshals are in charge of making sure that judicial directives get followed, but the U.S. Marshals are under the purview of the Department of Justice, which again is being run by Pam Bondi, who is a Trump loyalist. So all the people who could do something about this, and Elon Musk doesn't have the same legal cover as Donald Trump does because he's not an elected official or a cabinet member or somebody who's been, confirmed by the Senate. So he does have legal liability. But again, the FBI, the Justice Department, the U.S. Marshals, all of these people are being controlled by Trump loyalists who, even though they have a case against Elon Musk, are not going to bring it because they like what he's doing and they like him and they like Trump. So, there you go. Right. Let's see here. Evo Stepau says, I'm a big fan of Tim Walz, but I also don't have strong feelings about LGBTQ issues. Am I leaning Dem? What do you like about Tim Walz? And why don't you have strong feelings about LGBTQ issues? Where LGBTQ issues feel for me, I don't know if you ever heard, there's this famous poem that was first they came for the socialists and I said nothing because I wasn't a socialist. Then they came for the communists and I said nothing because I wasn't a communist. Then they came for the Jews and I said nothing because I wasn't a Jew. And then they came for me and nobody was able to speak up because there was nobody left. That's how I feel about LGBTQ issues. I might not be LGBTQ, but I believe that I need to stand up for their rights, because what if somebody comes for my rights at some point? I want them to stand up for me as well. I just think it's morally the right thing to do, to let them live their lives, and not make it harder for them to live their lives just because of, the things that the chemicals in their body are telling them is, who they should be. Let's see here. Pickle Bean says, I love Tim. Yeah, I think Tim Walz is great. Vegan Teacher's Twin says, was Tim Walz wrong to say that the expansion of Israel is a fundamental necessity for the U.S.? I do think that he was wrong to say that. Did he say that? I didn't see him say that. Ultimate Ranger says, so you would fight for something you don't believe in. I don't think that me not being LGBTQ means that I don't believe in rights for the LGBTQ. Yes, I would fight for somebody else's right to be in a same-sex relationship or be bisexual or be trans. Trayvon Baptista says, didn't Tim say that he was friends with school shooters? I do not believe that he said that. That sounds familiar. It sounds like some right-wing propaganda that I heard and then was summarily debunked, but I don't remember specifically. Skylar Boland says, what rights do I have that the LGBTQ doesn't? You have the right to not be fired for who you decide to have sex with and who you decide to marry. Your ability to be married and to have your marriage continue to exist is not currently being threatened by the Republican administration. You have the right to see heterosexual relationships in books and movies and TV shows, where books that feature LGBTQ characters and TV shows and movies that feature LGBTQ characters are currently either being banned or being threatened with being banned. They are being threatened with being classified as pornography. So yeah, there's just a little handful there. Danny says, I know anyone is better than Trump, and if you could pick next president, who would you pick? Danny, I get that question a lot, and I'm going to defer because I do not want to spend my time wish casting for 2028. I would much rather focus on the special elections that are coming up on April 1st, 2 in Florida and 1 in New York. So if you live in those areas, then please do the work to elect Democrats to those seats so we can get a little bit more power in the House of Representatives. And also we have midterms coming up in 2026. And so please, everybody, the work to win 2026 starts now. And, you know, I know that we're all tired of hearing that these elections are the most important in our lifetime, but until the MAGA extreme right-wing politicians are voted out of office, then every election is going to be the most important of our lives. Badger75 says military is off limits to LGBTQ. Yeah, if you need some surgery and you are in the military, the surgery will cover it for you. If you're LGBTQ, the military might not anymore. Thalen Justice says, hey friend, wondering where you consider yourself in your values. Social Democrat. Keep doing your thing. Thank you, Thalen Justice. I describe myself as a progressive, but I also don't really truck with some of the semantic arguments about what's a progressive, what's a Democrat, what's a social Democrat, what's a libertarian, what's a lefty versus a liberal. Like, I don't really care. But the word that I use is progressive. Diego Vargas says, do we have any chance to take the Senate back? We do. It's a long shot, but we definitely do. HTTPZXL says, you voted Trump though. No, I didn't. Danny says, do you think they will really take away Medicaid and Social Security? So here's the thing, Danny. I don't know if they will be able to. I don't know what the time frame will be for them to either get rid of those entirely or severely cripple them to the point, or reduce payments to the point where they're essentially useless. But here's what I do know. They want to. That is part of the Republican wish list, and it has been for a really long time. So I do not believe that we can count on those services existing going forward, because the Republicans are currently in charge. They have a supermajority in the Supreme Court, and they want to get rid of those programs, or at least severely defund or destaff them. So Trump 2025 says, you are lying. No, I'm not. Isn't it so funny that there are people on this app whose names are Trump 2025 or Trump God King or something like that? Like my avatar, my screen name is my name. And you're trying to tell me that I am less valid than somebody whose screen name is literally Trump 2025 or whatever? You know, it's fucking unbelievable. Who's in a cult? I don't know. Some people are, I guess. Overstreet Family Crew, good to see you again. What is next if Trump stops listening to judges overall? That is an excellent question, Overstreet Family Crew, and I am fucking terrified. I have no fucking idea. I think that we should all fucking take to the streets. I think that we should raise hell. And I would hope that we would be able to put enough political pressure on the Republicans in office that they would actually do something about this. You know, the end game could potentially involve, like, who does the military side with? You know, does it side with Trump or does it side with the Constitution? Like, it's really scary. And this is part of the reason why I work so fucking hard to not have us be in this situation right now. But here we are. So now we got to fucking do the work to try to undo the damage or try to at least stop the bleeding, you know? Let's see here. JC96 says, why are you gay? I'm not. User 12345 says, I can't vote, so I don't really care. But I just know it can't get worse than it was. User 12345, it literally can and is currently getting worse than it was. Scott Clowers says, they bend into pencil defending Trump on whatever crazy shit he does. Completely agree with that. Diego Vargas says, do you think Plato was somewhat right about an unchecked democracy? I don't know exactly which quote you're referring to, Diego Vargas, so please enlighten me. HTTPZXL says he fired a lot of military leaders. Yeah, and a lot of military lawyers also. It's scary. HTTPZXL. We should all be fucking concerned about that. Like, why do you do that? Why do you fire the heads of the various branches of the military if you're not thinking about doing a military coup? You know, it's really fucking scary. And it's part of the reason why I do these lives, is so that people get the fucking word, you know, so that people hear the news and people realize that they have agency, that they have power to do something about it, you know? The Poor Man's Podcast official says, how do you feel about the growing anti-Semitism in America? I don't care for it. I don't care for any kind of, like, prejudice against, groups, regardless of their level of marginalization. And, I don't think it's a coincidence that as we have seen the far right grow in this country, that we've also seen anti-Semitism grow in this country, because these are, they are fucking peas in a pod. It's fucking terrifying. So, yeah, it is concerning. I don't really fucking care for it. Overstreet Family Crew says, what do you think of the new razor bump rule in the military? I'm not familiar with that rule, Overstreet Family Crew. Kuru says, is Trump more interested in protecting Israel than the U.S.? Yeah, I think he's more interested in protecting Russia than the U.S. also. Badger75 says, should all politicians over 70 retire? Sure, I'm down for that. Cameron Faroudi says, the anti-Semites are the liberals. No, Cameron, and that's not a question, so you're out of here. Okay. Snappy Ryan says, Trump saved the astronauts. No, he didn't. I don't care for that kind of propaganda on my channel. Holiday says, how is Trump cutting NIH funding good for American exceptionalism in science? That is a really good question, Holiday, and I don't think that it is. What M8 says, do you believe the Electoral College benefits most Americans? No, I do not. Revo Luciano says, crazy, this has been going on for decades, and they are comfortable with being in your face with it. I don't really know what you're referring to, Revo Luciano. John Ham 065 says, if a re-election was announced for 2 weeks later, who wins, Trump or Kamala? I mean, I don't know if 2 weeks is enough time, but we know that the Harris administration, the Harris team, was doing a really good job of persuading voters in swing states. They were able to make a lot of progress in swing states in just the 100 days that their campaign existed. And so another 2 weeks of that work, maybe that would have, pushed the needle past that last, 1.5% that we needed to win that election. But I don't know. Let's see here. Pink Point of Resistance says there was a loophole in the military that allowed non-shaving if deemed to have skin condition. Interesting. Waffle says, have you heard of the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact? Yes, I have, Waffle, and I'm for it. So if you live in a state that has not yet adopted the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, then I think that you should call your representatives and tell them that you want your state to be a part of the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, because the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact would completely nullify the Electoral College. Let's see here. New Mexico passed it. I'm so happy for you, Waffle. Danny, my sister has small business Canada with 80% of her sales from U.S. Do you think the tariffs will happen? 100%. Joey Dismay says, do you think Elon fixed the election? I don't. It would be really difficult because Republicans did a lot better everywhere, including deep blue states like California and New York. The Harris team did better in swing states than they did in deep blue states, which suggests that where she was campaigning, it was working. And if Elon was really trying to rig the elections, he wouldn't have bothered with California and New York. He would just have focused on the swing states, which is where Harris did better. I don't really truck with a lot of these theories that Trump admitted that he told Elon to rig the election. I just think he's an old man who says a lot of dumb shit. And so he was kind of mixing together two separate sentences, which is that they were trying to rig the election against me, but I still won. Sphinx Egyptian, good to see you again. My MAGA coworker shared C-SPAN text saying Dems voted no on taxes, on tips, and Social Security. That's annoying, but also, the mainstream news is not exactly as accurate as we need it to be, like the value of mainstream news as they see it is in being as objective and bipartisan as humanly possible. But when one party is lying and fucking psychotic, being bipartisan doesn't do the world any fucking favors. You need to be able to call out the Republican Party when they're being fucking psychopaths. And the Republican Party are being psychopaths. So, yeah, did the Democrats vote no on tips and Social Security? No, they did not. They voted no on the House tax bill, which did not include those provisions at all. So yeah, I don't know where they fucking saw that shit. Maybe it's a doctored text. Maybe the C-SPAN was reporting that was what people were saying as opposed to what actually happened. But yeah, I have seen every person that I know that has actually read the bill has said that was not in there. Jojo says, have you seen the reports about Clark County's Nevada's election results? I have not. The only substantive reporting about election irregularities that I have seen have all been theoretical, like data scientists saying like this isn't true based on my models. But as far as like vote audits that have taken place, like they haven't found anything, unfortunately. Kristen, good to see you again. Oh boy, here we go. Says, what are your thoughts on Doge cutting out waste employment versus Clinton firing 376K employment? So I'm not really sure what you mean by waste employment. Like, are you talking about like people that work in waste disposal and stuff like that? I will say that there is a big difference between one of the main differences between Doge and I forget the name of the agency that happened during the Clinton administration, which is the Clinton administration actually got congressional approval for their audit, as opposed to what Doge is, which is just a bunch of fucking unelected ding-dongs ripping out the wiring of the government, stealing all of our personal data, stealing our social security numbers and our fucking banking information, and cutting programs that are investigating Elon Musk. What a fucking coincidence, Malloy Karen says it was a clean CR. Read it. There hasn't been a clean CR, Malloy. I don't know what you're talking about. User a whole bunch of numbers says, can Trump be impeached for firing government employees? I would say it depends. Number one, in order to get impeached, we would need to have more Democrats in Congress. So the Republicans, no matter what Trump does, he could literally like murder somebody on the steps of the Capitol and Republicans would turn a blind eye to it. So yeah, we would need to get Democrats in Congress for that to happen. But as far as like, there are definitely illegal ways that Trump has fired people in the government. So yes, I do believe that that's an impeachable offense, but it's a little loosey-goosey. What is an impeachable offense? The law says like high crimes and misdemeanors, which, there's a lot of wiggle room in interpreting that. Ken Starr and, the Republicans in the 90s decided that Bill Clinton lying about getting a blowjob from his intern counted as high crimes and misdemeanors. But the Republicans during the Trump administration did not think that fomenting a coup or bribing a sovereign nation counted as blackmailing a sovereign nation counted as impeachable offenses. Danny says, do you try to talk on Republican platforms to help educate people? I don't, because social media is too easy to manipulate social media. So, there are a lot of people on here who are spreading misinformation and disinformation and propaganda. Some people are doing it on purpose. Some people have been tricked into doing it. And so if I were to go onto a space like Twitter or, Truth Social or whatever, and try to put out these same ideas, I don't think that I would be talking to a lot of real people. I think that mostly I would just be getting into, screaming matches with people who are either trolls or people who are being paid to push certain narratives, or people who, their whole modus operandi is like trying to trigger a lib, I find that the neutral spaces, they tend to lean more conservative also, but I feel like the percentage of people who are real and open to actually learning these new ideas, they're more here than they are there. So yeah, maybe there's like a couple of people who, you can convince by going into fucking Parler or whatever, but it seems like a lot of work for not a lot of return on investment. Big Dog Gunna says, so you'll never debate? Makes sense, you just make everything up. No, Big Dog Gunna, I don't make things up. But I also don't believe in debates because, if you look at guys like Destiny or Vaush, who just like, they have people on and then they just like, debunk everything that they're saying, I don't know if that helps, because both of those groups of people take their like a video clip of what they did on that live and say that they won. I believe in having conversations and trying to convince people and pushing the needle that way. I don't think that just perpetuating this fake ass WWE style, rivalry between left wing voters and right wing voters is productive. I don't think that debates are productive because, it's just two people who are not going to change their mind trying to own the other person. So yeah, I just don't buy it. And I would prefer to move away from that kind of model of political discourse where I don't call Republican voters dumb or misinformed or ugly. There are a lot of left-wing creators on here who make jokes about, right-wing women not being able to do their makeup good and shit like that. And I don't think that that's productive because I think that we need to focus on convincing the people that can be convinced and not perpetuating this idea that we're just like two diametrically opposed forces. Like, we are the 99%. The bad guys are the billionaires and the Republican Party that is working in league with them. And when I say the party, I mean the politicians, not the voters. The voters just got tricked. They just got conned. And as frustrating as that is, they do not have a monopoly on getting called because they're conned, because there are plenty of Democratic voters who got conned into not voting or voting for Trump. They got conned into thinking that not voting was better. There were 8 million people who voted in 2020 that did not vote in 2024. Those people got tricked into thinking that not voting was the better option. Yeah, there are a lot of left-wing people who got tricked into thinking that, Joe Biden's very, very, very bad policies towards Israel would have been better under Trump. And I agree that Biden did a bad job with Israel. But I also know that what Trump is doing is worse. So, they fell for it. They all fell for it. Taylor, if it's just billionaires, why have I lost $30K a year under Trump versus Biden? Taylor, I don't know that you actually want me to answer that question because the way that you're asking it is making it seem kind of fake, if I'm being honest. Like, do you want me to tell you why the inflation that happened under the Biden administration was actually started by the Trump administration? Do you want me to explain to you that the stock market actually did better under Biden than it is currently doing under Trump? Do you want me to explain to you that because of Trump's tariffs and shitty economic policies, not only are we facing a recession and possible depression, but the cost of living is continuing to skyrocket and inflation is going back up where it was going down under the Biden administration? So yeah, maybe if you can make your question more specific and not, obviously leaning towards your right-wing beliefs, then Taylor says, no, you're wrong, because into Biden's first year. Yeah, not only are you not here in good faith, but your spelling is atrocious, so you're out of here. All right. Okay. All right. Completely agree with all that. All right. Brian Leota says, quit spreading bull. I'm not. Yeah, baby, over on Twitch. Good to see you again. What's your best Trump joke? And what are your thoughts on the recent bombing of Yemen? I mean, we are seeing so much evidence that Trump is exactly as much of a warmonger as everybody fucking else in the Republican Party. I think it's so dumb to me that people got tricked into thinking that he was the dove, that he was going to avoid getting into conflicts and shit like that. Like, it's unfucking believable. But yeah, is there a substantive benefit to him attacking the Houthis? Like, that I'm not 100% sure of. But I know that it's not peace building. It is not trying to build coalitions or anything. Like, I think it's really weird that he's like, it's cool that we negotiate with Hamas, but the Houthis we're going to bomb. It seems like he's fucking really splitting hairs here. And as far as like my best Trump joke, I mean, I talk about Trump a little bit in my stand-up, but like doing stand-up here on a live is not as it's not really the way that art was meant to be appreciated. Lever 2K says, thoughts on Ukraine, Russia. Do you think a deal will be made? No, I don't think a deal will be made because I don't think Putin wants to make a deal. If you look at the stipulations that he put forth as to like what a potential ceasefire would look like, it's basically just saying like, I get everything I want and I get to attack you again in the future if I want, and NATO can't come after me if I do, and America has to support me if I do. And Trump was out there saying like, this is the good deal. We should take this deal. This is a great deal. So yeah, I don't think there's going to be a deal. If there is a deal, Russia's going to violate it. What Putin and Trump are working on right now is slowly moving it to the acceptable area of the Overton window for America to stop sending any aid to Ukraine and to start sending aid to Russia instead. But yeah, I think that supporting Ukraine in this war was completely justified, both morally and, logistically, as Russia is an adversarial nation to America. They have been attacking us for the past 10 years by trying to by successfully manipulating our social media in order to create more chaos and division. And the fact of the matter is that supporting Ukraine has decimated the Russian economy and the Russian military. It has paid dividends. And I would fucking love it if they would stop attacking us, Let's see here. All right. Ultimate Ranger says, LOL, dude can't answer one question. I'm getting suspicious. Zionist alert. I have answered a ton of questions, Ultimate Ranger. Is there something that I did not talk about? Ultimate Ranger says, what do you think about the map that Netanyahu showed at the 79th UN Council meeting? So that's a question that you said that I was ducking. I don't know what map you're talking about. So there's your answer, my man. Damon, FYI, says, you can tell they're MAGA when they don't know the difference between there, and there. Again, Damon, I am not here to call Trump supporters dumb. I do not believe that that is productive. Soviet Mind says, when Biden bombed Syria and Trump said it was not our fight. I don't know what you're talking about, Soviet Mind. Yeah, baby says, what are your thoughts on the recent protests in Serbia? That's a little over my head, unfortunately. I'm so sorry. My pockets of knowledge about global affairs, there's big chasms there. Let's see here. Pickle Bean says, does the Electoral College ever get analyzed for redistribution? I don't understand how it came to be. It does. Every 10 years, we do a count in this country of how many people live where, and Electoral College votes get redistributed based on that. How it came to be is sort of up for historical debate. Like, some people think that it was a giveaway for small states. Some people think it was a giveaway for slave states. But if you were interested in this, there is a woman named Kate Shaw. She is a legal scholar. She has a great podcast called Strict Scrutiny where they talk about the Supreme Court. She actually wrote a paper on why we should get rid of the Electoral College that I found very informative. Short version is that it is a relic. It does not serve the citizens. It does not do what it's supposed to do. And it is extremely easy to manipulate in order to, get a certain vote, outcome that you want. So I would give that a Google. Kate Shaw, the Electoral College needs to go, something like that. Give that a Google. And let's see here. Lever2K says, what are your thoughts on Trump administration trying to deport the student from Colombia? It is a blatant violation of that student's First Amendment rights. I think that the fact that Colombia is kowtowing to the Trump administration is fucking disgusting and embarrassing for an institution of higher education to be so fucking I don't give a shit about things like First Amendment rights and exploring cool ideas. Like, that is what universities are fucking for. Like, you're supposed to be about ideas. Ugh, unfucking believable. Yeah. Melissa McDonald says, do you think the Veterans Day protests were suppressed? If so, by who? I didn't hear any stories about that, Melissa McDonald. Noitre Gamer says, why does the left claim Trump fighting domestic terrorism support is anti-democratic? Because it is, Noitre Gamer. And isn't it so funny that you always come in here with a question that makes it clear that you only get your news from right-wing sources, Trump is not fighting domestic terrorism by deporting a kid who is protesting for Israel to stop doing war crimes against the people of Palestine. Like, that is not domestic terrorism there, even a lick, Or no, you're talking about people torching Tesla dealerships and shit like that, Who gets to decide if that's domestic terrorism or not, But it is wildly unethical that a CVS can get burned down and a Tesla dealership can get burned down. But Trump is saying that because one of his primary donors is the guy who owns Tesla, he is going to make, hurting a Tesla dealership come with harsher legal penalties. Like, that is unbelievably unethical. It is unbelievably corrupt, I don't condone violence of any kind. So I'm not out here saying that people should be torching Tesla dealerships or anything like that. But the fact of the matter is, like, it's just a crime, whether you are torching a Ford dealership or a Tesla dealership, by making it more of a crime just because your buddy is the guy that owns the company. That is unfucking believable. It's way beyond the pale of how a president is supposed to be objective and for all Americans, as opposed to the ones that just put millions of fucking dollars in his pocket. Kevin says, are you Democrat or Republican? I am a Democrat. Apple user, whole bunch of numbers, says, is it true that Trump's approval rates have gone up? No, it is not true. GlobalTaskForce.org says, how do you feel about the last administration and current administration handling of UAP disclosure? I gotta be honest, I really don't care about, what the government knows about aliens versus what the government doesn't know about aliens. I would love for some, substantive evidence, but, everybody that has been a whistleblower in this, other people have said, they're just cuckoo bananas, So, yeah, I don't know. I think it is, I think it's fun to think about, but I don't really see a substantive difference in, sorry about burping. Oof, sorry. A substantive difference in people's lives based on whether we have this information or not. JJL says, what's the best argument against those on the right that are for Doge? Here's the short version, JJL. Number one, they're lying. They have not done the things that they have said that they are trying to do. The fraud that they have found is a lie, and they have been debunked on this time and time again. And the times that they have cut things that are what they say that they're cutting, they are grossly inflating how much money they're saving. So they're saying 20 billion when they need 2 million. That's number one. Number two is they are an illegal organization. They do not have congressional approval, and so they do not have any authority to do the things that they are doing. So what they are doing is currently illegal. That's number two. Number three is the only thing that they are actually doing is, number one, cutting programs that help the 99%, the middle class and below, and hurt the top 1%, like the Consumer Financial Protection Board. That is a government agency that helps the 99% not get fucked over by the top 1%. And Elon Musk wants to get rid of that because he's the 1%. He wants to fuck over the 99%. So yeah, he's cutting programs that help the rest of us so that the fucking elites with all their fucking golden towers can continue stomping on our necks. He's cutting down programs that are investigating him. Like USAID and the Consumer Financial Protection Board were investigating him, and he wanted to get rid of that. All they are doing is making life worse for everyday Americans. The Consumer Financial Protection Board has now been hobbled, and now if your bank fucks you over, you have no legal recourse to do anything about it. USAID has been hobbled, and now it is going to be easier for infectious diseases like Ebola to come to this country because we don't have USAID over there stopping it where it is. Terrorist organizations have become more powerful and more influential because we don't have USAID in, emerging countries building schools and hospitals and shit like that. So yeah, that's the short version. But the fact of the matter is, the damage that Doge is doing is astrofucking-nomical. Here's another thing. What Doge is doing is mass firing veterans in addition to cutting veterans' benefits. So this from the party that's supposedly going to be supporting our military and our veterans. Well, they just mass fired a bunch of veterans, and now they're making it less able for them to get health care and mental care. What could be better for somebody who maybe has PTSD from being in combat than to suddenly be fired from your job and not have access to a therapist anymore? So yeah, there's some more for you. But you could go on for hours just talking about the damage that Doge is doing to this country. Notre Gamer says, why should the U.S. be spending American taxpayer money on subsidizing foreign states? Because when we help other people, we also help ourselves. I think you should be asking, why should the U.S. be subsidizing billionaires who already have plenty of money? Why should the U.S. be subsidizing giant corporations that aren't paying their employees enough to not also need government aid? People that work for Walmart have to go on fucking food stamps because they're not being paid enough, because they're being paid slave wages. Why are we subsidizing Walmart? Why are we subsidizing the fossil fuel industry? They're so fucking wildly popular. Can't they pay for their own oil and coal extraction? Aside from the fact that we should be moving away from fossil fuels because it's fucking poisoning our air and our water and making our planet less livable and threatening, our ability to grow food and making storms worse and making diseases worse. Jeff Winnebago says, can you reconcile wanting military aid for Ukraine but not for Israel? Why not neither? So there's a big difference between sending money to Israel and sending money to Ukraine. Israel is the stronger military power in that region, so they technically don't even need our help. That's number one. Number two is Israel has been found guilty of performing war crimes against their neighbors, against the Palestinians. Hamas has also been found guilty of doing war crimes against the people of Israel, but we are not sending money and weapons to Hamas. We are only sending it to Israel. We already have a law on our books that says we are not allowed to send money and weapons to countries and governments that do war crimes, and so we should not be doing that. Ukraine, by contrast, is not doing war crimes against the people of Russia. They were illegally invaded by Russia. Russia is trying to take over, completely annex Ukraine, and that is against the global peace order of organizations like the United Nations, where we decided after World War II that big, strong nations are not allowed to take over and annex smaller, less big nations, you know? And so it was the right thing to do to support Ukraine in this morally, but also it was the right thing to do logistically and tactically, strategically, because Russia is a hostile nation towards us. They have been attacking us by infiltrating our social media in order to sow discord and chaos amongst the population, and, you know, create distrust in our institutions. You know, and in supporting Ukraine in this war, we have decimated both their military and their economy. So yeah, it was the right thing to do. Set the Fighter says, what, it like spreading lies on TikTok all day? Yeah. Russian troll farms and people paid by billionaires are going on the internet to spread misinformation and disinformation and propaganda to divide us, to distract us, and to convince people that to vote for Republicans or to not vote for Democrats. That's the whole fucking game right there, guys. Niall says, not true. I have Ukraine family living in Ukraine. Ask the people that actually live there firsthand. Well, Niall, I don't know who you are. You could be lying. You probably are. And also, even if you're telling the truth, that's what we call anecdotal evidence. Just because you have that experience does not mean that that is the, you know, overall thing that is happening. Set the Fighter says, host, you have no source. Yes, I do. Just ask. Sorry for Tomorrow says, why won't either party accept a modern day Ellis Island stance on immigration? I mean, if you want a reasonable, substantive, and humanitarian immigration policy, then you should vote for the Democratic Party. The fact of the matter is the Democratic Party has become more aggressive and right-wing on immigration because that's what the nation told them that they wanted. That's what every poll was saying, was we want you to do more about immigration. Even in blue states, the Democrats were being told, be more like Republicans on immigration. So they did. But if that is something that you care about, then you need to vote for Democrats. And you need to let them know that that is a priority for you. Jackson Cornelius says Democratic Party is a joke. Time to reform. Completely disagree with that, Jackson. Brandon, the DNC deported more. Yep, LMAO. Yeah, they deported more criminals. Brandon, that's the word that I think you were looking for, whereas the Trump administration is just deporting anybody that they fucking want. They're deporting veterans, they're deporting Native Americans, they're deporting kids with cancer, they're deporting people that fucking are legally allowed to be here, they're deporting people just for expressing an opinion they don't agree with, which is a blatant violation of the First Amendment. So yeah, you can miss me with that fucking shit. Noichi Gamer says, why should we subsidize Ukraine after what they did in the Donbass and them not being thankful for it? I don't really give a shit about them being thankful for it. Again, it was the right thing to do morally, and it was the right thing to do strategically, Noichi Gamer. So I don't really understand what issue you have with that, except for the fact that you are a right-wing person who is here to spread right-wing narratives. You're not here to learn. Let's see here. Faga War Production says if the Democratic Party is to have a future, they need a Huey Long. I don't know if I agree with that. Lever 2 Gay says thoughts on the current state of the Democratic Party. So here's the thing. No matter what Democrats do, they get yelled at. I call them Schrodinger's political party because at any given moment, they are simultaneously too far to the left, too far to the right, doing too much and doing too little. No matter what the Democrats do, it gets chewed up and spit out as the not actual worse version of what they said or did. And if they don't have a thing that they can do for that, then they make some shit up. The Affordable Care Act made it illegal for insurance companies to discriminate against people with pre-existing conditions. And the Republican Party said that there were death panels in the Affordable Care Act. Kamala Harris did 2 campaign stops with Liz Cheney as a way of saying to the American people, look, Trump is so bad that even a far-right Republican like Liz Cheney is saying that I would be a better choice. And that got chewed up and spit out to say that Kamala Harris is just a Republican. She loves the Cheneys. She's a warmonger like the Cheneys. The Cheneys love Kamala because they have the same platform. Not true at all. So what do I think about the current state of the Democratic Party? I think that they are suffering from having an information environment that has been fully weaponized against them for decades. And now that social media exists, it's even fucking worse. Because whereas the legitimate news sources at least had some sort of journalistic integrity, despite the fact that they were over-reporting negative stories about Democrats and under-reporting negative stories about Republicans, now it's the fucking social media where people get their news, and it's the fucking Wild West on here, where anybody can fucking say anything, and you've got combinations of trolls and paid bots and useful idiots who have been tricked by the paid bots, and people who are left-wing saying that, perpetuating the dumb culture war between left-wing voters and right-wing voters, and people on the right making things up, and people on the left saying don't vote because the two-party system is corrupt and shit like that. So yeah, I think the Democratic Party is a lot better than people give it credit for, and the Republican Party is a lot worse than people realize. And I think that Democrats never get any credit for the good things they do, and Republicans never get any blame for the bad things that they do. Democrats do better on national security and the economy, and yet the Republican Party is always viewed as the party of fiscal responsibility and national security. When they let 9/11 happen, the Republican Party was fully in charge during 9/11, and yet somehow we didn't blame them for that massive dereliction of duty, for that unbelievable national security fuck up. All right, let's see here. Sorry, my channel got reported for inactivity, which is something that right-wing people like to do to try to shut me up. All right. So, yeah. The Democratic Party is diverse. It represents people like AOC, and it represents people like Chuck Schumer. And I think that that is what a political party should be. It should look like the diverse opinions of America. And it should look like the diversity of America, where they have more marginalized people in the Democratic Party, elected representatives of the Democratic Party, than on the Republican Party, So yeah, I think that they have been treated extremely unfair in our culture, in our narratives, in our medias, and I do not believe that they are perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but they are so much better than the Republican Party that they might as well be perfect, because it's like looking at the difference between the size of a sun and the size of an ant, Jermaine Holiday says, I wonder why no one is requesting, because I do not invite people to join my lives. Let's see here. Okay. Sphinx Egyptian says, I don't remember in 80s and 90s this much hate for immigration and border policies and deportations. Sphinx Egyptian, I think it's entirely related to the, how much the Republican platform has failed. That they have had to start demonizing and demagoguing others even more to distract people even more from the failures of trickle-down economics and deregulation and rampant monopolization. Slam says, guy's about to cry. No, you're thinking of your mom who cried on me last night. Shayla says, what do you think about the closure of the Voice of America? It's just more fucking shutting down the voice of opposition. It is what Russia wanted. And so Trump shut down Voice of America. They're fucking, the Putin and his government in Russia are celebrating right now the American government closing down Voice of America. So there you go, everybody. Is Trump a Russian agent? I don't know, but he sure is acting like one. All right, I've been on for an hour and a half. This always happens on Mondays when I just have a whole weekend of just like pent up political rage to get rid of. So yeah. Picklebean 4 says, I'm 35 and just started getting into politics. Has it always been this bad? So the answer is kind of yes and no, Picklebean. It has always been this bad in the sense of like, if you read, political op-eds from almost any era of American history, you will see stuff that is this egregious and divisive and fraudulent, and inaccurate. But it is also worse right now because, except during World War II, we have never been this fascist adjacent, and literal fascists have not had this much political power in America in a very, very, very long time, maybe ever. So yeah, it's definitely worse now than it was before, and I think that has everything to do with social media, misinformation, disinformation, propaganda, etc., etc. All right, everybody. I have been going on too long. I need to wrap things up. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you all for the support, for the gifts, for the likes, for the comments. I love it coming on here and answering your questions and talking politics with you guys. My streaming schedule is Tuesday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I often start early and I often add a Monday because I really like doing these. If you have questions that I was not able to get to on this live, my DMs are open. You can also hit me up through my website. My website is also where you can find my streaming schedule and my performing schedule. I am a live touring stand-up comedian, so you can come see me do comedy if you like. And yeah, just my plea. Oh, last thing before I do the plea is I appreciate any kind of support you can give me, whether it's the free kind, like likes and shares and telling your friends how great my live streams are and that everybody should check them out. And if you can afford to do the financial kind of support, I appreciate that too, but you obviously don't have to. We are all suffering through a cost of living crisis. But I have a Patreon that you can join. I have a store that you can buy things from. You can find both of those things on my website, jaredbernstein.com. And you can send gifts, and you can subscribe on TikTok and Twitch and YouTube, I think. I don't know about YouTube, but I think. I don't know. But yeah, so now here's my final plea, is just to not be cynical and to not give up. To do the work. Do the work with me, guys, because that's how we get the fuck out of this. You know, I've already said, I went on a fucking whole rant about this, about how social media is the Wild West, and people are getting their news off of social media. And the people that are manipulating the social media, they want you to not vote or vote for Republicans, or just spend your time fighting and arguing against people who are either real or not real. And so in order to counteract that, we have to do the work. We have to talk to people in real life. We have to talk to our friends and our family and our neighbors and our coworkers. We have to make sure that they're getting real, legitimate news and not fake news and misinformation and propaganda. We have to correct any narratives that they may have absorbed that are inaccurate and damaging to the project of having a free and safe America. Narratives like both parties are the same. Narratives like voting doesn't do anything. Narratives like nothing ever changes. Narratives that take unfair potshots at the Democratic Party when the Republican Party is literally doing Schnazi shit right now. You know, like, I think it is so fucking hilarious that there are so many more articles about how ineffectual the Democrats' resistance has been, as opposed to articles like the Trump administration paraded a kid with terminal cancer at the State of the Union, even though his party cut funding for pediatric cancer research. It is so hilarious that we're seeing so many articles about how Chuck Schumer folded under the Trump administration's spending bill, instead of articles about how damaging the spending bill is and how it is a massive and unprecedented fascist power grab by Trump and Elon Musk. Awfully sus, guys. Awfully sus. So let's do the work. Do the work with me, guys. Because the more work that we all do, then the less work that I have to do. The more work, the more people that do the work, the less work that each of us individually have to do. If we all do a little bit of work, then nobody has to do all the work. And there's already great organizations doing this. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Indivisible is a great organization. Go join them. Run for Something is a great organization. Go join them. Vote Save America is a great organization. Go join them. But yeah, make your voice heard. Go talk to your representatives. If they don't have their phones on, fax them. If they don't have their faxes on, go to their offices. If they're closing their offices, find their fucking schedule. They're going places and they're doing things, and it's their job to listen to you. And political pressure is one of the few things that we can do right now, besides voting and boycotting and striking and protesting. Political pressure is one of our main, 5 pillars of civic engagement and getting shit done, you know? Wawa says, repeat those organizations, please. Indivisible. That is an organization that deals with applying political pressure to people who are currently elected. Run for Something is an organization that recruits young progressives, only people under 40, to run for local and state office, no federal campaigns. And Vote Save America is an organization that gets out the vote and connects people with canvassing opportunities and ways to discuss issues with potential swing voters. So yeah, let's all do the work, guys. Let's all do the work. If we all do the work, we all do a little bit of work, then nobody has to do a lot of work. All right, everybody. Yeah, baby says, have you considered that the diversity of the Democratic Party is causing them to lose elections? I would say that strategically, yes, because it is harder to mobilize a big group when it is made up of a lot of little groups. That's why it's so much easier for Republicans to get in line, because they're much more of a monolith. But that doesn't mean that it's the wrong thing to do. It is the right thing to do. We are stronger when we work together. The problem is that it's easy to fracture us because, of social media and shit like that. It's really easy for people to stoke divisions between progressives and centrists and shit like that. But yeah, it's the right thing to do. And when we do it right, we win. Okay, I gotta get out of here, guys. I could do this all fucking day. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you back here tomorrow. I hope you check in again. I hope you tell everybody how great my lives are. And have a great week, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye. 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 Goodbye. Goodbye.